Well, ladies and gentlemen, we said we would deliver a plan for 2032, a plan that delivered benefits for Queensland for decades to come, a plan that would make Queenslanders proud on the world stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we promised that plan, and today we deliver the plan for 2032 and beyond. 1,343 days ago, Queensland was awarded the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Our government was elected just 150 days ago, and in that short period of time we have delivered what you've seen today. Finally, Queensland has a plan. The time has come to just get on with it. And get on with it we will. We can get on with it because the plan is built upon hard work. We went to the election promising to establish the Independent Infrastructure Coordination Authority and giving them 100 days to provide the government with a proposed blueprint for the Games. That is exactly what they have done. They've met with hundreds of stakeholders. They've reviewed thousands of submissions, and their report has formed the basis of the government's plan for the 2032 Games. Today, I thank them, Stephen and his team, for their tireless effort, and we greatly acknowledge their massive part in building a robust plan that will get these Games back on track. Their work sits at the centre of this plan. There has been a mountain of work, and there's no one else I would have wanted driving that other than the Deputy Premier, and I want to acknowledge his hard work and tenacity in delivering what you've seen today. Which brings me to the 2032 delivery plan. Ladies and gentlemen, at the centre of the plan will be a Brisbane stadium built at Victoria Park. Endorsed by the Lord Mayor. The facts are these. The review thoroughly examined the options on the table. That work revealed the option of major works at the Gabba to bring it up to a standard to befit the Queensland Games just wasn't possible. The experts advised it could not be delivered in the time frame we inherited. There is no longer enough time to get that done. So it came down to a choice between the embarrassment of hosting the Games at Cusack or a new stadium at Victoria Park. It became a choice between spending billions on temporary facilities and temporary stands that delivered no legacy, or securing the future of AFL and cricket at a new home. It became a choice between delivering a Games with an eye to the future or rewinding the clock 4 decades. In the end, the choice was clear. The Games must be held at a new stadium at Victoria Park. Any other choice would have meant placing the government ahead of the interests of Queenslanders. We've had enough of that in the last few years, and I wasn't prepared to do that. Friends, Olympic and Paralympic swimming holds a special place in the heart of Queenslanders and stirs the passion of emotion amongst our state in the way that few other sports can. There have been credible options put forward, from a concert arena with a drop-in pool to even a drop-in pool at Suncorp Stadium. The problem with these is that legacy for swimming disappears after the Games. The consequence is no sporting legacy is delivered, and that means nothing for our swimmers for tomorrow. No return for our investment for one of the iconic sports of our state. Instead, we are excited to announce we will build a new national aquatic centre with a Games capacity of 25,000 people. The centre will see a number of Olympic and Paralympic sports move their headquarters up to Brisbane permanently. A real world-class legacy which will serve these sports for decades to come. It will be constructed at Centenary Pool, and that has the backing of diving, artistic swimming, water polo and Swimming Australia. That's delivering legacy for the future, and I confirm it will be the best aquatic centre in the globe. Friends, there is more to hosting an Olympic and Paralympic Games than a stadium and swimming concept though, and I'd like to take you through some of the highlights for the South East. We will be delivering the RNA Showgrounds a much needed and long awaited upgrade. As well as housing the Brisbane Athletes Village, an upgraded 20,000 seat arena, and that's an outdoor arena, will host key events. Equally importantly, it gives a new life to the Ekka, one of the most important cornerstones where the country meets the city. I can also announce Melbourne will not be taking the tennis from Brisbane. Not on our watch. A major upgrade of the Queensland Tennis Centre will include a new 3,000-seat show court arena and 12 new match courts, which, in addition to the Pat Rafter Arena, will bring even more tournaments to Brisbane. Which brings me to the future of Brisbane Live. Let me be clear. Brisbane needs a world-class Brisbane Arena in the CBD, full stop. The independent authority had to be guided by agreements put in place for the funding from the federal government. So the review couldn't consider the merits of the arena being privately funded. The government's decision not to proceed with the arena as part of the Games plan does not mean the death of Brisbane Arena, far from it. What it does mean is an opportunity to put the $2.5 billion the federal government has budgeted towards other infrastructure, including the Brisbane Stadium, the swimming, the tennis, the National Aquatic Centre, and that's just to name a few. What it means is we can reduce the burden on taxpayers. I can reveal today the state government has seen offers from the private sector to build a Brisbane arena for the fraction of cost for taxpayers. To my mind, this development is a game changer and proof there would be no value to Australian and Queensland taxpayers to spend $2.5 billion on a Brisbane Live arena when the private sector is willing to engage with us to deliver one. To show how serious we are about progressing plans with the private sector, today I officially announce our government will move the new Brisbane Arena priority site from Roma Street to the vacant GoPrint site at Woolloongabba, and we will proceed immediately with a market-led proposal. The vision our government has beyond the Games also includes the Gabba coming down to make way for urban renewal beside a world-class arena. Wouldn't it be amazing to see the Australian cricket team win gold at an Olympic final, the Gabba's swan song? Ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you will ask with how will the state and federal government funding agreement work? To that I say this, these Games are fully funded and I'm confident our delivery plan makes financial sense and will deliver a legacy long beyond the Games and a legacy in that allocated funding window. I think Queenslanders have seen our ability to negotiate well with the federal government and all levels of government. Just yesterday we negotiated a national education funding deal with the Albanese government, and that was something that my predecessors were unable to do. And it's an exciting deal, and it's a 10-year deal for Queensland schools. And in the event government changes at the next federal election, I'm pretty confident a Queenslander like Peter Dutton will also work with us to deliver the plan in full. And it's a plan that stretches beyond Brisbane. I want to touch across South East Queensland now and some of the existing venues that will play a major part as we promised. But there will also be new and accessible indoor sports centres at Logan and Moreton Bay, and a new whitewater rafting centre in the Redlands. The Chandler Sporting Precinct will be upgraded to become a dedicated parasport community facility. When we say legacy, we mean legacy for everyone. And so it will be with transport, where upgrades to road, rail and our main highway will better connect Queensland's second largest city, the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast will be home to an athletes' village at Royal Pines, as well as a new arena. I can also today announce that hockey will secure a legacy beyond the Games, with a major upgrade to the Gold Coast Hockey Centre. And that brings me to Toowoomba, and today I can announce the beautiful city, which is home to our treasurer, will see its famous showgrounds transformed into an equestrian centre of excellence. and that will host the 2032 Games equestrian events. To the Sunshine Coast, and Queenslanders are going to get the opportunity to ride the wave. And that's a direct rail line running from BOR all the way to Batinia. And that links with a state-of-the-art metro hub that will connect all the way to Sunshine Coast Airport through the Maroochydore CBD. And I thank the Independent Authority for their vision in that. The Maroochydore CBD will be transformed with a new integrated athletes village, a new arena in a new cultural precinct, and that's legacy for the sunny coast. We have rejected the plan of the former government to stop that at Caloundra. We listened to the local community who told us they didn't want their town turned into a car park. The wave will ensure that does not happen. In the last few weeks, we have seen reports that events would be moved to New South Wales and Victoria. In the next breath, Queensland has been told that we can't move events to the regions. Our government takes a different view. It is our position that if investment comes from across the state, then the benefits and excitement should be spread across the state. So what does that mean? It means that we'll be taking the 2032 Games to regional Queensland. Some have made their disdain for this position. They say it can't be done. I say yes it can, and let's get on with it. It is with great excitement that today I announce in 2032, rowing will be held in Rockhampton. It had been recommended to move the event to Sydney, but I believe there is a legacy play and we must grab that. The people of Central Queensland have made it very clear. They are capable of hosting this famous sport, and I trust them to be able to deliver it in style. Rockhampton has already been the venue for training camps for the Australian Olympic rowing squad, international squads, and it's hosted Queensland schools rowing regattas. But that's not all. Football and basketball will be played in Cairns, with the possibility of cricket should it be included in the Games. Townsville will co-host sailing and the football. Billions of people will see the beauty of the Whitsundays when they co-host sailing. There are also plans for Mackay to host the cricket. Maryborough will host archery, and in doing so, it will offer the world the chance to witness the majesty of those historic buildings before turning their attention to the beauty, the natural beauty of Hervey Bay. But friends, we've always said the Olympic and Paralympic Games must be more than just a sporting event. It must deliver generational infrastructure to make this state a better one before, during, after the Games. Here is just a snapshot. In Cairns, there'll be upgrades to the Western Arterial Road. With the rowing moving to Rockhampton, the city will need a new athletes village, and that will be built at a revitalised railway yards precinct. This will become vital accommodation for a growing and important region. In Mackay, Harrop Park will be upgraded. The Bruce Highway will benefit from a multitude of investments, and we have secured that deal, and we have secured 80/20 funding to deliver it. This does not include plans for the Games On, and that's a grants program that will inject money to hundreds of clubs in every corner of this state. Local facilities to host training, events, generational legacy for our kids. Also on offer are upgrades to existing facilities like Perry Park and the home of football to create new training options for one of the largest Olympic sports. While the final makeup of sports will be determined next year, we have the venues and the plan to deliver world-class games. Ladies and gentlemen, we weren't in office when the Games were awarded in July 2021, but we are the government who Queenslanders have tasked with delivering it. And deliver it we will. And it'll be Games that Queensland will be proud of. The certainty and investment driven by a united Queensland working together to implement this plan will create generational opportunities. It'll unlock a 20-year tourism strategy for this state. We must capitalise on the increased interest that comes with hosting this event. Imagine the Visit Queensland story. Just imagine people sitting there consuming the best food and drink we have on offer in buildings built using Queensland products and medals made using Queensland minerals. That's a story to tell. And let me assure you, with this plan, we will be ready. When the eyes of the world turn to Queensland, let them see the great people that call this state home. Let them see we're not Paris, we're not LA, this will be better, and it'll be the Queensland way. And that's what will make the Games great. To my fellow Queenslanders, we promise to sort it out. We promise to do the work. We promised a detailed plan. We promised to fix the mess, and we have. The time has come to get this done. Finally, Queensland has a plan to deliver 2032 and beyond. Now let's get on with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Deputy Premier Jared Blay earlier and the Queensland Premier David Crisafulli. There you have it, the announcement we've all been waiting for. Confirmation of a new stadium at Victoria Park and a new National Aquatic Centre with 25,000 seats at Centenary Pool, which the Premier says will be the best in the globe. But for more on this announcement and the venues for the Brisbane 2032, joining the Premier on stage now is Courier Mail editor Chris Jones.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Premier. Did I pick up in your voice when you started to speak after that video a little bit of emotion?
It's pretty special. The Shield final, that 95-96 moment is pretty special, isn't it? But yeah, it's all that's great about this state. But if it's one message, it's that we always find a way. We find a way in floods, we find a way to win when people say we can't, and that's what this is about. And there's been a lot of people who are invested in this, and I'm not just talking about people in sports, in the sports field. There's a lot of people invested in this to get it right, and we put a lot of work into it, but it'll deliver what we need to.
Yeah, and we've spoken a lot about days. You spoke about this as day 150 of your government. It's 1,343 days since we were awarded the Games. There are only 2,677 days to go. Along the way, we've had a few 100-day reviews. We've just had the last one, and we've heard what a great job the review team did. And look, I think, as we said on our front page today, absolutely, and thank you for stealing our line, it's time to let the Games begin and just get on with it, all right? So good on you.
Didn't you steal it from us?
But I do have a few questions. You told me on stage at Future Brisbane in November, the last time you were here, when you announced the review, that the reason we were in the mess that we were in, nothing's happened, is because there were too many decisions being made by the politicians. And since then we've had that review. You're going to release a report today, and what Queenslanders will see is that you haven't accepted all of the recommendations. You've made some big calls that run different to what they recommended. Why have you done that? Why have you allowed the politicians to get involved again?
But at the heart of the review forms the basis of what this plan is. And it was the review that showed us that the GABA wasn't an option to proceed. Now, that was always my preference, but clearly it can't be done. So this review does form the basis of it, and as the Deputy Premier says, the vast majority of those recommendations have been accepted. But ultimately, I have to be accountable to Queenslanders, and I said on stage that day that I did want to take the politics out, and we have. I've let some of the most eminent Queenslanders be able to put forward recommendations, and they're good recommendations, and ultimately I have to make a final call, and the decision we've made will enable us to deliver a world-class Games, will enable every square inch of this state to benefit in some capacity. And if you have a look at the review, which you will see, we won't. My view is always about, if you believe in transparency, you put information out, you allow people to see why you made a decision, you will see overwhelmingly that their review does form the basis of us going forward.
Accountable to Queenslanders. You also told Queenslanders several times, many times, through the election campaign, leading into the election, that there would be no new stadium. How are you going to walk through that one?
By being honest and copping that on the chin. You're right. And I have to own that, and I will. and I am sorry. And it's my decision, and I accept that decision. But I'm also going to release what's in this, and having known now that it is just not possible without, you've got two key tenants in the Lions and the Bulls, it is not possible to deliver that with that dislocation in this period of time. So I have to be open and honest with Queenslanders. But in the end, it was a choice, and there was a choice to make. And the choice was between QSAC and a new stadium. And I know which one would have been politically easier for me to make, but I've made the right choice. And I've made the choice that Queenslanders will see, and they will see why we made it. And I wasn't prepared to take the politically easy option when the truth is that wouldn't be at the benefit of the state. And so, yeah, I accept it. Absolutely I do. But it's the right call. And I've given people the reasons why we had to make that call.
Surely you knew that leading into the campaign. When you were saying that, you weren't living in a vacuum. We could see the warts on QSAC. We knew the troubles with Gabba. We understood the issues with displacement for the Lions and cricket.
I did believe we had time. I did. And some of the best people in infrastructure delivery have said we don't. And I can't run the risk of a venue not being ready on the world stage. That would be something we couldn't recover from. And likewise, I don't believe in going to put a venue out at Nathan and winding the clock back to 1982. I just think that's short-termism, and then rip down those stands and all, move on. That's rubbish. What we've got here is a plan for generational infrastructure, and a plan for every bit of Queensland. Queenslanders can see this is a wholesome plan that gives people an opportunity, but it also it will enable, when the eyes of the world are on us, to stick our chest out and be proud.
Now, the big question is around the arena. So the feds want to guarantee it in terms of funding it fully by taxpayers. You're taking the different approach of splitting that money up to fund some of these other things, and then you think, and you said in your speech, that there are some private proponents who would come aboard and deliver this at minimal taxpayer cost. Firstly, how are you going to get the Prime Minister over the line? Because as late as this morning, he's on TV saying, no, I'm going to deliver the arena with the money that I've set aside in the budget.
Yeah, but as late as 48 hours ago, people said he wouldn't agree to my education deal. And I was at Canberra yesterday collecting the money, and I brought it back here today.
So you're going to do it through cannoli diplomacy?
Well, it's not just cannoli, it's coffee as well. Look, I think we've demonstrated a good ability to work with people, regardless of their politics, regardless of the level of government. I think we've shown that. And it just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to spend money on something that the private sector would invest in. And that information has come to light. Now, the Independent Infrastructure Authority delivered according to the terms of reference. We believe that the federal government will work with us. We do. We genuinely do. And if you have a look at it, it is fully funded. Their money is in the budget, and you'll see it tonight. And I think we'll make a pretty credible case. We can stay within budget, and we can use our land and our planning powers to be able to deliver something generational. And I think there'll be a feeding frenzy of people who want to get on board. Why wouldn't you? It's the best block of land there is, and it can create something special, and it's special over a long period of time. And I think with a combination of good planning, a good deal, I'm pretty confident that Queenslanders will see something they're really, really proud of, and we can stick to the budget, which is something that I also looked Queenslanders in the eye and said I'd do, and it's important that we do.
Now, planning powers you mentioned there is probably the key point. What are you talking about in terms of how you'd rezone that Gabba? It's already a PDA.
We want to put a PDA over the entire site and work with council, work with the private sector, and get some real mixed use and some real energy there. It's a cracking site.
Have you got Peter Dutton lined up after the election if he wins? Look,
people in this room won't be under any illusion as to who I'm backing in the federal campaign, and I said that yesterday standing beside the Prime Minister in his courtyard. But regardless what the outcome is, we'll work with whoever is the next government. We've done that. We were told that it would not be possible to get 80-20 funding for the Bruce Highway. We never relented on that. We didn't yell and scream. We didn't belittle them. We put forward an offer that worked, and they agreed. Same with education. Yes, I held off until the last hour. Today's their budget. But not many states secured the deal that we did. And again, didn't do it by yelling and screaming at the Prime Minister. I put forward why Queensland kids deserve a good funding arrangement. We're the most decentralised state. We've got rural and regional areas. We've got a high Indigenous population who need education. I mounted that case, and on the back of it, we got a good deal. And that's what can happen when you strike the balance of not being a patsy, but not being overtly political. And I think I've struck that balance okay.
I'll just give a shout out to the Corey Mouse Help Our Highway campaign as well for the Bruce Highway outcome. But anyway, in passing.
Well,
hey, so the arena, Brisbane Arena.
I wouldn't be sitting here in front of the 98 logos if I wasn't a little bit...
You've counted them, good. The Brisbane Arena, you're saying it needs to be funded by the private sector. But on the Gold Coast, where your electorate is, and on the Sunshine Coast, where the Deputy Premier's electorate is, under this plan you are funding arenas. How do those things balance up?
Well, that's not the case, and Tom's here. And Tom, who's funding your arena? Thank you. Anyway, well, that's 1 David, 0 Chris. But anyway, but regarding the Sunny Coast, you're right, but there's an opportunity, and what the Deputy Premier has done is there is an opportunity with an athletes' village there to create something really special, and obviously there'll be some commercial argy-bargy in there. But I'm not saying that there can't be a contribution made by a state government to get the arena out of the ground. We're not giving over, a small parcel of land somewhere in the back blocks of the universe. It's a pretty important part of parcel land, and I think there's a pretty reasonable value with that. And I'm very confident that we can deliver something that is world class. And best of all, we can make sure that Queensland taxpayers don't have to foot the bill for it, and that we can work with the federal government, and we're not asking for $1 extra. We can do this in the budget, and I've communicated that yesterday with the Prime Minister.
Let's take it to the regions. I think a lot of people were shocked, and we saw it confirmed today, that the Fitzroy River, with its issues, would be hosting...
Why?
Well, I don't know a lot about rowing, but I do know there's a stream in the river, and apparently that's not legal. How do you... If world rowing, if you don't find a way for that to work, how are you going to explain that to the people of Rockhampton in the next election?
Well, let me start with a couple of things. In LA, it does have current, and they didn't have room for a 2-kilometre course in LA, so they've cut it short. And I make the point that that river has been used for a multitude of events, including international teams training there. And there's kids on that river every other weekend. So if it's good enough for Central Queensland kids, I reckon it's good enough for Pierre from Paris. And we are going to deliver a regional benefit. And it's not just the 1,200 competitors that will come there. It's the opportunity that an urban renewal of a dormant part of that city can come to life. And anyone who's tried to get accommodation for Beef Week knows that a few extra dwellings there might also be useful. So we've put a bit of thought into it. And I do believe that you can get generational infrastructure. And already the Deputy Premier, Mr Liveris, have already engaged with the new IOC President. That shows you how serious we are. And we will engage with our friends in the rowing fraternity. But in answer to your question, we're having it there. And we'll do everything we can to make sure that it works to the highest possible standard, including giving the full-length course, not the truncated one that the states are giving. But it can happen. And what you saw today is a lot of work and a lot of will. And I'm very confident that we're going to put on one hell of a show.
I can't wait for the interview with Pierre from Paris on that one. If we move to Maryborough, the surprise today was that you are going to have archery there. What is it about Maryborough? The last government made up a job called Assistant Minister for Train Manufacturing and gave it to the local member for Maryborough, and you've just given them the Olympics archery tournament.
Well, we're not going to have an Assistant Minister for Archery, so that'll be music to your ears. I look at Maryborough and I see some of the greatest collection of heritage buildings that we've got in the state, and I reckon the backdrop of that is something special and worth selling. And if you combine it with Harvey Bay, that's 20 minutes away, you've got accommodation and you've got some great visibility there. So archery is not a massive sport. You're dealing with somewhere just north of 100 competitors, but it's symbolically strong, and there's the opportunity for something that looks really beautiful. And I want to sell the Queensland story. I want people to see different images of this place and be sitting at home in their freezing lounge room and say, wow, that place looks cool. I want to be there. I want people interstate to say, wow, there's a government with a plan. It's got their stuff together. I want to invest there. I want to move there. That's what this is about for me. And yes, the sports are very important, and there's people in this room who we wouldn't be here without their genuine interest in the way that they've put forward their submissions over the last 100 days. But it's got to be more than the sport. It's got to be. And if you do that, you can create something that is really, really special. And I believe in this. I believe in this plan. And I think Queensland is going to back it.
Townsville for sailing while we're there. Obviously, the Whitsundays came up originally in the original plan. It was moved back to Manly. Now it's Whitsundays and Townsville. How do you think the sailing, world sailing fraternity will be dealing with that?
Well, Mr Lewis has already started negotiations in that, and it is possible to split the events, and that's been confirmed, and we'll work with them. I like the optics and the imagery that come out of the Whitsundays. You won't get anything more beautiful. But what I love about the Townsville experience is, yes, you've got a world-class strand, but there's also the ability with Magnetic and Palm Island to sell a dream as well. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you that there's a mayor by the name of Alf Lacey who wants more for his community. And he wants two things. One is he wants home ownership for Aboriginal people who live there. I'll put a big tick beside that. Second is he wants real jobs. He's over all the talk about the nonsense. He wants real jobs. And part of that, he wants to have a proper Indigenous tourism experience. And I think that with the eyes of the world on it, there's a story to tell as well. And I want Queenslanders to see that there's going to be benefit for every part of the state out of this, every part. And if we do it right, everything from grassroots improvement through the games on, through to generational infrastructure like a new stadium, can make this place a better place.
We have a few guests here from Victoria who've flown up for this. Among them the AFL Chief Executive Andrew Dillon. Welcome, Andrew. The Dan Andrews with the Commonwealth Games, where that went sideways and he had to end up cancelling it, was when, as a politician, he started to add more and more regional cities to the plan, and the costs escalated. We know from the review that the parliamentary inquiry did that the biggest challenge was the overlay and all these different sites. How do you possibly keep this under budget? Have you done that work, or are you just thinking about venues and ticking the box for Townsville, Maryborough, Cairns, Rockhampton?
No, we will keep it under budget, and I'm a big believer in setting ministerial accountability. In answer to your question, that's not what Dan Andrews did. Dan Andrews completely and utterly scrapped the plan and said that it'd be entirely based in regional areas. That's not what we're suggesting at all. We're suggesting about making sure we can play to people's strengths. The overwhelming majority of events are here, and we're not trying to change that. That's what it should be. But I don't accept that the opportunity to show a world-class foreshore in Townsville and the Whitsundays is not something we should grab. I think there's something in that. There's an opportunity to sell a tourism story that comes with that. And I likewise with those other opportunities to host football in Cairns, and if we get cricket, and surely if they have cricket in 28 of the states, you'd want to hope they have it in Australia in 32. There's a magnificent opportunity that comes, like in Harrop Park. We're going to do something to make that a really, really quality venue, and then there's long-term play for that community as well. So it can work. It can work, and it will work. And overwhelmingly, I reckon the majority of people overwhelmingly will say, yep, that's good, or I don't agree with that. But you won't have too many people who say, nah, let's go and start that again. People say to me, get on with it. And one thing that I want this room to know, and I had this position when I was in a different role, when I was Leader of the Opposition, and it would have been very easy for me to say, it's all wasted time and we can't get it done. I always said we have time. I always said. And if you turn the clock back to Sydney didn't get awarded the Games until 93. And they probably wasted a little bit of time before getting the show on the road, so it can be done. Would it have been great to have started a few years ago? Yes, absolutely. But we are where we are. And it's time now to have a crack and get on with it. And get on with it we will. And there will be people who disagree, and there'll be people who try to make political hay. That's fine. That's part of the process. My job is to deliver it, and deliver it we will.
Now, you've done what all politicians do, and you've been watching the countdown clock, and you've given me a really long answer as we come towards the end. But guess what? It's my event.
All right.
I've got a couple more questions for you.
Okay. So the clock means nothing to you?
It's a guide. You've delivered a brand new stadium here, 60,000 seat stadium.
63,000 seats for Legacy though.
For AFL and for cricket at no cost to AFL and cricket. What is in this master plan for your favourite sport and our state's favourite sport of rugby league? Thank you to the rugby league person in the room.
Well, Suncorp Stadium is a world-class stadium, and we're not going to let it wither on the vine ahead of 2032. So let's be clear about that, and it will continue to be a world-class stadium, and we will invest in it. But the Gabba's a different proposition. The Gabba is at its end of life. It hasn't been well maintained, and we do need a stadium to host this great show. And there is an opportunity for legacy play. And great that Andrew is here, and Andrew and I will continue to arm wrestle about what the future looks like and some benefits that can come to Queenslanders. And I'll, might even arm wrestle Mike Baird, who's here from cricket as well. There's no free pass for those two. So they're going to have to do some good things for Queensland as well, and we've begun that process. But in terms of rugby league, have a look at the first round of Games On program that Tim Mander has led. There is a hell of a lot of funding in there for junior rugby league clubs. You might know he was a rugby league referee. He was the rugby league referee that cost the Cowboys a grand final against the West Tigers. And I have reminded him about the 7-tackle set for a long time. But Tim's driven what a good grassroots plan looks like, and I want it to be right across the state as well. I want to make sure that kids in regional areas can see the benefit of this.
Now, I haven't read this. I assume you're going to be walking around holding it like this for the next few months, as politicians do.
Yes.
But what I didn't see in your video was any mention of the Paralympics High Performance Centre. Is that still in the plan? What is the plan for Paralympics here in terms of legacy?
Well, I'm glad you're listening, Chris. I said that in my speech. It's going to be at Chandler. And I want to make sure that the Paralympians understand that this is going to be a long-term legacy for them. So you bet they're going to get it. But it's not just about the centre. What the development of the Games can do is about creating generational infrastructure that can be beneficial for people all the time. I mentioned Logan and Moreton Bay, and I saw the mayors as I walked in. That venue will be accessible. It's important. I look at a city like the Gold Coast, and it's a young city. The opportunities that come with doing venues that are disability compliant and making sure that we're developing things that are disability compliant. There's a real play economically long term for us in that as well, but across the board. If you don't believe you should be doing it for compassionate reasons, and you should, do it for economic reasons. The long term, in an ageing society, in a society where people are struggling with disabilities, there's an economic benefit for being in destinations of choice as well. And I think this can really benefit in making sure that we develop things that are disability compliant into the future.
The speech I did listen to very carefully, how could you not, was the Deputy Premier's. And in it he said...
You understand we have a relationship. Cop, bad cop, you get that, right?
I get that. I wanted to see Elvis costume coming out later, Jared.
Only if you ask.
No, but the Deputy Premier was talking about there hasn't been a sod turned. So my last question, I think the question that everyone's got in this room is, when now, we've got the plan, when will we see a sod turn?
Really quickly. And there's a bloke sitting here who wants to get cracking on an arena. There's 2 mayors who want to get cracking on their facility. And I can assure you, we are going to begin immediately. And we are going to remove whatever roadblocks it comes, but we are going to get on with it. And I want Queenslanders to know 2 things. The first, we have a plan, and we will not veer from that plan. That has now been set. We put the last 1,340 odd days behind us. We've got a plan, and we will deliver. And we will deliver it by the finish line. And I want every Queenslander to know, regardless of what it is that interests you in this plan, whether it's one sport or one infrastructure project, one opportunity for housing legacy that comes with those villages, whatever it is that interests you, it will be delivered. That is a hard finish line, And we've got 7 years to make it work, and make it work we will.
Premier David Crisafulli, thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Thanks again.